Thank you, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Administrator Criswell, I heard everything you said about all the resources that are being brought to bear, but we keep interviewing survivor after survivor who says that either they didn't see any government personnel or assistance for days, or that they still haven't. How do you explain the disconnect between what they're saying and what you're saying about all the resources that are there in Maui?
I think you need to understand that this community is going through an amazingly traumatic event. I can tell you that we have personnel that are on the ground year round and embedded in with the state as soon as the fire started, so we could continue to understand what resources were needed and help move them in. The Coast Guard conducted 17 rescues that day and supported 40 additional rescues. And so they were there Tuesday helping these people escape the flames that they were experiencing. We have staff in the shelters. I met with many of the individuals. They're right there. Our staff are walking and talking to the people and helping them register for assistance. We also have our voluntary agencies like the United Way and the American Red Cross that are there. And we know that we need to get to everybody. There's also people that are staying with family and friends, staying with residents in other parts of the island, and that's why our teams will continue to go out into the communities to make sure everybody that needs assistance can get assistance. I think the Disaster Recovery Center is going to be one way that they have a place and a focal point that they can come get their questions answered instead of just going to a shelter, which is what's been available right now.
I know that FEMA takes a backseat to states in situations like this, but Hawaii is a small state. Does Hawaii have the staffing and the expertise to lead a recovery effort of this magnitude?
And we've been embedded with them. We actually have personnel that integrate in year-round with them to help maintain their capacity. But we also recognize that this is a large event for them, and they are a small state. They have asked for assistance from some of our other states, and I can say like California, Cal OES is sending one of their incident management teams to embed with Maui Emergency Management to help give them the capacity, help give them some of the relief they need, and help develop that structure to maintain this longer-term response.
Could the state turn leadership of the recovery effort over to FEMA if they wanted to?
I don't think we would ever want that, right? This is their community. We want to be able to support them, and we will be there to support them throughout this recovery process.
On the monetary assistance that's available, this critical need assistance, I believe that's just a one-time per household payment. It's intended for consumables. But our teams on the ground are hearing from people who are concerned about making their car payment, making their basic bills now that their lives have been so upended. What do you say to residents who fear that the money that is, being made available just isn't going to cut it?
Yeah, the programs that FEMA has, the critical needs assistance, is just that. It's to support some of their very initial basic needs. In addition, we have our individual and household programs that can provide additional funding that covers, home repairs. In this case, most people lost everything, but it can also cover losses to personal property such as vehicles or major appliances. We'll work with each individual as they register for assistance to help understand what's eligible under FEMA. FEMA's programs, again, designed to help jumpstart that recovery process. It won't cover all of their needs, and we'll work with our faith-based partners as well as some of the philanthropy organizations that have been giving funding to the state so we can make sure that everybody has their cases managed in a way that helps them meet any of the unmet needs that they have.
And on your coordination with state officials, you said when we talked to you earlier in the week that you've been encouraging them to really make their requests early, to try and think about what they're going to need in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Given how understandably overwhelmed they are, do you feel they have the ability to do that, to be able to think that far in advance, to see what they're going to need a little bit further down the road so that you can provide those resources?
And I think part of what we have done as we have embedded our teams in is we help them think about what their potential needs are going to be, and bringing in this, additional team that's going to support the county will help them think through strategically into the future, what are we going to need a week from now, 2 weeks from now? And those are the types of daily conversations in a future planning cell that are happening every day so we can make sure we have a continuous flow of resources into the area.
I know your focus right now is on the response, but it does seem like there are some questions emerging about how these fires began and how they were able to spread so devastatingly, including questions about the sirens that went off and also about faults in the utility grids. in your conversations with the president and in his conversations that you've been there for with the governor, how interested is he in accountability for what happened? Does he want to get to the bottom of that, and is that something that he's asking your team or other teams to look into?
You know, we always want to make sure that we understand what happened and how we can continue to improve so we can minimize the impacts that other communities may have. And that's something that the president is committed to. This is still going to be part of the state's response to determine what level that they want to assess the cause and any of the initial response. But we as a community, as an emergency management community, always want to continually learn from the events that we're facing, especially as we are seeing a continuous rise in the number of severe weather events. That way we can put the measures in place to either make communities more fire resistant, that we can mitigate against some of the other damages or the other threats that we're going to face in the future, and we can reduce the impacts that these communities are going to see, but also help individuals understand what the future risks are that they could potentially face, and they can take the proper measures to make sure that they are prepared, them and their families, to protect themselves.
You said on Monday that you were going to need some additional funding so that you don't have to push some projects into next fiscal year. Do you have an estimate for how much is going to be needed?
I think the administration's supplemental request has gone up. I believe our initial request was in there for $12 billion. Again, we have enough funding to support the ongoing response efforts because we take events like this into consideration. But it would delay, if we don't have additional funding, it would delay some of the recovery projects and push them into next year.
Beyond that 12 billion, though, you're going to need more beyond that?
We may potentially need more beyond that, and my team is assessing that now.
I'll take one last question, way in the back.
Hi, you mentioned there will be a long recovery. Can you talk about the mental health aspect of it, the assistance that the federal government will provide, and how people can access that?
The mental health aspect, is that what you asked? Yeah, I mean, this community is going through one of the worst things that we could possibly imagine, and the mental health concerns are real, and the mental health concerns are a priority for the governor and his team. We have, as part of our programs, the ability to bring in mental health services through our crisis counseling program. But the American Red Cross has also brought in mental health specialists. And as they continue to support the state's sheltering operations, what they are doing is they are embedding mental health specialists to make sure that they can help address some of the immediate concerns and needs that these community members are having.